most of you will have been here to these sessions before. Those of you that have will know that this is the third one of the Walk Nuts partnership. And I always keep this slide up at the beginning because I think it's really helpful. So you'll have seen this before, and it's just a really simple overview of what this partnership is, just because it's still quite new. This is our third meeting, but it's something that we only started earlier this year. So it's just as a bit of a refresher, really, that this is a way to bring together people from across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire to help collaborate and support to engage with more people walking more frequently across our region. So you will notice that there's people from all sorts of different backgrounds in here, from transport, sport and health, and all sorts of different agendas and different outcomes. But ultimately, everybody in this room has got some sort of engagement in delivering walking activities in our region. And so that's why you're all together in this rather crammed, very packed meeting room this afternoon, because we're all sharing that one similar outcome. We are going to break into very smaller breakout rooms in a moment to give everybody a chance to do an introduction. Just because I'm mindful that there are so many of us, and it seems like such a shame. Lots of new people attending at each session, and it's such a shame when we can't do individual introductions just because of the volumes. So Adam is going to very kindly split us into some breakout rooms, and we'll only be in there for maybe 4 or 5 minutes at the most. And I wondered whether during that time you could just get to know the people that are in your breakout room by giving a quick introduction to who you are, your background. So are you from sports and leisure? Are you from transport? Where are you from? And if you've got one very, very quick success that you could share, we've not got a great deal of time, but I'm thinking that since the last meeting that we had, lots of you have launched new walking initiatives and programs. So there might just be some little gems of learning there. So it's going to be really, really brief. We won't have a great deal of time, but hopefully everybody will get a chance to do a quick 60 to 90-second intro, and you'll be able to see who's in the room with you. Just reflecting on the group that I've just come out of, such a varied range of people in that group, but some really good successes as well. We heard from one of the members that was talking about some of the talks that they give during walks or around walks around scams and scam busting and awareness, and kind of engaging people with things that are not just about walking. So yeah, that was really interesting. I hope you managed to get a whistle-stop tour of the people in your room, and I appreciate that it wasn't a huge amount of time, but at least it will have got you familiar with another 5 people that are in this room. So thank you everybody for taking part in that. If we just go to the next slide, Adam, if that's okay. Thank you. So here's the introduction for today. I did fail to introduce myself, but I think most of you have met me in some way or the other. So I'm Helen Hemstock. I'm from Ridewise, and we're a charity that focuses completely on green forms of transport. So most people know us for walking and cycling, but we also do lots of activity around greener forms of transport like trams, trains and buses as well. So anybody that doesn't know me, that's how we fit in. And we've been working on this partnership project with the Active Partners Trust over the last year to try and build partnerships and collaboration around walking. So the agenda is very much focused today around the impact of walking on our communities, and we're really, really fortunate today. We've got 3 great speakers that are coming to join us. We've taken your feedback from the previous sessions around what you'd like to see and what you'd like to hear about, what you're interested in. And there was a really, really strong theme right the way through the last couple of meetings that we've had of that community impact, how walking programs affect our communities, what they get out of that, what learnings we've got from delivering that, and that whole community piece. So you'll see that today's agenda is very much focused around the impact that walking can have in our communities across different projects. So we have 3 speakers coming to join us today. Helen is up first, and I can't see from my view whether Helen has appeared or not, whether we can see her. Helen, are you still there? Yes, she is.
I am
Fabulous.
here. I've also joined just in case people wanted to see my face, on my phone. So if I look like I'm not looking, it's because my phone's on a slightly different angle so I can see my screen. But I thought that was quite a creative, technological, what's the word, workout, do something to get around it. So
very impressive.
Yes,
Helen.
thank you, whoever gave me a clap. That's very kind of you. Thanks, Jane.
So Helen, you're going to talk to us about One Step at a Time.
Okay, sorry.
And the learnings and the links to working with that. So there will be an opportunity for questions. So if you do have a question, then pop it in the chat and I can read it out, or when we get to the end, we can ask Helen those questions and save them all up to that point. If there's something really pertinent at the time, Helen, is it okay if people put their hands up and we can flag it up if it's really, yeah. So I'll hand over to you then, Helen, if that's okay.
Well, hopefully Adam's gonna sort. Have you sorted me out, Adam? Not my camera, but you're gonna push my buttons. Is that, am I allowed to say that? You're gonna push the buttons and get my video playing, hopefully. And Fiona, I know you've seen the video, but I think you're the only one on the call that has seen it. I can't see anybody else's name that might have seen the little video that I'm going to show you. Hopefully, we're going to show you. So yes, so anyway, I'm Helen Davis. I work with the Active Knots team, or part of the Active Knots team. I predominantly cover Mansfield and Ashfield, so you'll see more of me if you live, work in those areas. But my involvement today is around the One Step at a Time programme that we started a while ago. So Adam, if you move my slides on. I don't think I've ever had anybody say next slide, please. So the One Step at, oh, you've gone too far now. You're not. I've done all this animation. I got it all set up nicely. Now you're messing it up, Adam.
Sorry, stop here, yeah.
Right, so we should have rehearsed, shouldn't we? So One Step at a Time is a programme that aims to connect and support members of the community who are feeling disconnected, isolated and lonely by helping them become socially and physically active. And one of the main aims from it was right from the front door. So it's not a traditional walking programme, and I would say we've tried to get away from it being seen as a walking programme. And I'll explain that and where that came from as we went on, but that's the key aims of it. It's around helping those people that are predominantly people that are feeling a bit disconnected, lonely, need a bit of support to help them get out and about as locally as we possibly can. So as you can see from the picture there that Adam's moved on too quickly too, it started in COVID in lockdown 1. It came from health partners who in the city, predominantly in the city, who were telling us that that they were working with a lot of residents and patients that were needing support and help to get out and about, but it wasn't really medical support that they needed. They didn't need clinical interventions and support. It was just more that actual befriending, help and guidance to build some confidence to get out and about again. So the voluntary sector came together to start to think about, well, how could we help do this? What was needed? What was happened? So we brought predominantly CBS infrastructure partners came together. So Mansfield CBS, Ashfield, Ava, Bassett Law all came together to try and see what could happen. And there was a real sense of initially wanting to own the programme and then deliver the programme. So next little dip it, please, Adam. My little bunny, my rabbit hole. There we are. So we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, I would suggest, after with lots of different chasing different ways, different thinking of what we were doing. So you know, we had questions, well, if we're going to do this, who's going to manage all the volunteers? If we're going to help people get out and about, they need to be trained, or what training do they need? How do we know people are safe to go for a little walk if they've been deconditioned from being inside all the time? And what insurance do we need? Do we need to have high-vis jackets? Do we need to have first aiders? Do we need to have stools, flasks? All the conversations that went on around what was needed to just literally try and get people out the door. Possibly that was heightened a bit during COVID, I would suggest, that people were maybe a bit more cautious about what we could do and what we needed to do. But we soon realised that actually what needed to happen was something that needed to be sustainable, that would be able to last beyond the length of, well, actually there's a bit of funding to help a CVS get a volunteer befriending programme going. We need something more sustainable than that. So what the idea of One Step at a Time was born. So I don't know if you just click on. So One Step at a Time was born, and with a lovely little logo that we helped design. So if you move on, Adam, please. So this is a short video that Adam's just going to play now, and it can explain far better than I can how the journey of One Step at a Time and what we're currently looking at doing. On the clip, you'll see 2 of the coordinators, which is the model that we've taken across each of the districts as a coordinator. And Zara and Linda talk within the video about their work and what they're doing.
It really came out of the pandemic when it was identified that there were a lot of people that were just marooned really in their homes, and they weren't coming out. But the longer that people are inside and not moving around and talking to people, obviously this has a really debilitating effect on their physical health and their mental health. And the longer they're in, the more difficult it is for them to come out, to take that first step outside the house. During the pandemic, there's a really, really good charity that was doing some excellent work, providing a weekly doorstep support scheme for people who wanted to be involved in that. So what they would do was go round to those people's houses, same time, same day, every week, and would just talk to them on the doorstep. About 5 to 10 minutes, give them a little activity to do that they could do for the rest of the week. So the first step for them was like getting from their lounge or the bedroom to the front door to talk to someone. And as the weeks went on, they gradually kind of built up trust. And then when we came out of lockdown and it was safe to do it, there was a big kind of great get-together at the community centre for people in that position coming out to something for the first time. It really helped if they were going somewhere that they already knew, so like a safe and a known place. And it helped if they were going with somebody that they knew and trusted. So my role, I've got a couple of things. I'm talking to residents, just listening to them, and that can be done informally. So as part of my running group, as part of the social sessions after an exercise class, part of Age Concern wanting to relaunch their age-friendly Carlton initiative, I was able to help set up some focus groups. So again, on a more formal way, we were able to ask residents what they wanted. Then just going out and finding what is out there already. So going to physical places, so going to the Age Concern charity shop, coming here to the Carlton Community Hub, what social media groups we've got, like the Carlton Hill Community Action Facebook, and publications, so things like This is Gedling and NG4 magazine. Also the support services, so finding out the groups that are there, and then connecting all of those groups and sharing information. We have helped connect like the physios with the fitness instructors at the leisure centre, so there's kind of like continuity of support for residents there. It's really about creating the environment where people are connecting and helping each other. So the group just working with the Carlton Hub with housing schemes to think about how we can do things like the nature activities, maybe enable residents to kind of plant seeds. So again, they're kind of thinking outside of their homes. It's just making those connections and helping them to help each other. There's a sign on the door of the Carlton Community Hub that talks about inspiring and growing communities of hope, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
I stayed in during the pandemic, never went anywhere, and when it came to coming out after, I couldn't cross the step. I used to just break down, and then one day I got a telephone call from the Butterfly Project asking me if I was interested, and I said yes. So Kelly came, and after 6 weeks I started coming here, and it's just changed my life.
My name's Linda Patterson. I'm the One Step at a Time project coordinator at Age UK Nottingham and Notts. My role involves working with community and voluntary groups, linking in and connecting them, supporting them, and with the aims of the One Step at a Time project? Well, essentially, it's befriending leading to an activity. So I work with small community groups where people are encouraged to come along, to bring friends along who perhaps haven't been out. You know, this is all post-pandemic, where people are still quite nervous about coming out, about joining in. The call centre came about. I was on a Teams meet. It was one of the community engagement groups with Gedling. And it was the first time I attended, so I did a little talk about myself and the One Step at a Time project. And Becky was on the call, and I said what I was looking to do was connect with community groups who might be interested in putting on an activity. And she says, well, we're thinking of a walking group. Come and talk to us. So I had before that met Glyn Louth from the Broxtowe Walk and Talk. And I thought it'd be an ideal opportunity to put the two together. I don't have experience as a walk leader, but you know, I can put a project together, and came over to see them. I mean, it's an amazing local asset here they've got in Gedling. So connected them with Glyn. There is a lot of older people who are socially isolated. They may not have family nearby, but I think there's a growing number of young people now who feel isolated, disconnected, who need to be encouraged more to become physically active, socially active.
With any groups, it's difficult to start. You don't know sort of what you need to put in place for it. So Glyn had all the information on that, and he could help us. And again, that's a really good partnership that we formed there. He's really, really supportive to us, so we appreciate that.
The beauty of having somebody like Linda running it,
yeah,
that she could put us in touch with Glyn and find the relevant people to advise us.
Cool. Oh, I'm not muted, am I? No. Thank you. Is anybody, how long have I got? Another 15 minutes. Is that about right, Helen? Another 15 minutes?
Yeah, just over 10 minutes.
No,
Yeah.
we have time for questions. Right, I better speak quickly then. We won't have questions now. We'll just let me finish what I need to just quickly whiz through. So, next slide, please. Or slide show me. There we are. There you go. So the work that you've seen there has been funded to date through Nottinghamshire County Council, with some support from Jigsaw Homes Foundation, and then also Active Knots. We put some funding in through our Together Fund work that we had to try and support community groups to enable this to happen. So we've now got a team of 7 coordinators across the county, and just supporting just recently. Evolve have come back on board in the city to try and have, so we've got a Linda or a Zara everywhere that can support and enable some of the work to happen. What we have learned is that coordinator role can't control and have everything happening across the whole of the district. So what areas have done is try to focus on a priority place, on somewhere that they can really get to know and understand an area and the organisations that are in there. And we've tended to focus to date so far on older adults and those with long-term conditions. However, saying that, moving forward in Newark and Sherwood, Newark and Sherwood CVS are really keen to try and work with young people, because they recognise through some of their other work there's quite a lot of isolated young people that they're working with, particularly in Bilsthorpe, Sherwood and Ollerton, I think it was, that they said they're going to focus that into. And then in Bassetlaw, there's a desire there to try and work with Eastern European communities. So rather than doing it across the whole of the area, they'll just go to where this community is a priority for them to be working. Next slide, Adam, please. Oh, yep. So you probably gathered from watching the video that part of the role of the coordinators is, I've put them like, they're like super sleuths. So they're out there connecting, they're identifying what services are there, what partners are there. And next click, Adam, please. But one of the key things for them is that they're there to really try and connect groups and connect services and connect groups with services and residents with services. So their role isn't around identifying a resident and supporting a resident in the same way that maybe a social prescriber would or a local area coordinator would out in the county, but more this kind of actually really building the capacity, supporting those community organisations, that they're the ones that can actually be working with the residents to help them connect, get out and about and do what's relevant for them. Sometimes they do end up talking to residents. We talk to Sarah, she'll talk to you about the residents that she's spoken to and she's supported to connect into things and maybe a walking group or whatever it might be. But that tends to be really the work of the One Step at a Time is around this building capacity, connecting and enabling within communities. And one of the key things there then, Adam, if you can just put the next little picture up, is really helping those community organisations be the ones that are creating social action, that they've got they're the ones that own the volunteers, that own the volunteers, that sounds awful, but they're responsible for those volunteers, they're responsible for those befrienders, because then they work within their practices and their policies and their procedures, rather than it being something that's been set by county council or by Mansfield CVS. It's actually those community organisations. We trust that they're doing what they're doing, so let's let them get on with that and work within what their realms, their insurances, their policies, their procedures of what they say and do. So yeah, it's really about them just helping them get out and about, taking a little walk down to the bingo or the lunch club or whatever it might be that'll help that resident get out and about for that first time, or connecting back into the community for whatever reason that might have stopped them doing that before. Next slide, Adam, please. Yep. So this year to date, there's been about £80,000 investment, and that's predominantly come from, well, as I said, that's come from the County Council, Jigsaw Homes, and then us. But we've done a little bit of capture, and we think we've connected with about 62 different community groups and organisations, predominantly across the county. We've supported 92 different community-based sessions with some resource and funding, and then alongside that 410 volunteers through the work. And that has meant over 16,000 interactions with people who are socially isolated. So, which actually, when we're quite a small team, relatively small investment, I think, in terms of what we're trying to do, has been quite positive. But one of the things, and this figure that's about to flash up, you just need to take it. I think it's right. Katie thinks it's right, but we've not really fully sense checked it. So don't go telling everybody this yet, because then the County Council don't know this yet. So don't go too well on it. But there's a loneliness and monetisation report that we've found to try and work out the cost of the impact of loneliness, and how that can be calculated. So they reckon that's about 9,967 to be precise. I don't know quite how they get the £76 per person for moderate to severe loneliness, and that's calculated on the fact that their health, their productivity and well-being is changed if your class is being with moderate to severe loneliness. So the value of these interactions in the local community groups that we've had, we think it's probably around 160 million that we've saved through this work if we supported these people to really genuinely connect and not be lonely and isolated, which is, when I said it's £80,000, that's quite a big return on investment, I would suggest. So not that's, I think it's not taking that to verbatim, but it is actually, for me, it's that, well, small investment, working differently, connecting, enabling, so going where our strengths are, working with those key community organisations. Actually, we do represent really good value in the voluntary sector to try and make a difference. So, and just finally to pull on the key things. So what we've learned is provision needs to be as local as possible. The more local we can have it, the better connected it is, the better. We really need to support our community organisations to work together, because actually they really struggle at times with the whole being able to put your head above the water and look at what's going on around, because they're so busy doing what they're doing in place that actually that becomes really hard for people. So actually having that extra capacity of our One Step at a Time coordinators to help with those connections, to help identify where some of their members and residents might get additional help with services. So just that extra capacity to help them to create, because they are the ones that are there for that. we have identified actually the lack of provision for working age people. Most stuff happens during the day. So actually those that are isolated as well, you don't have to, you can be isolated if you're at work. Just because you've got a job doesn't mean that you've not got things there. So something there around for us to consider. Residents would like to get out and about, but can experience difficulty accessing groups. So it's challenges around digital connection, anxiety about going out for the first time, mobility problems, and so people struggling to get out and about, lack of benches. You know, people, that's something we've heard quite a lot around. Actually, you want me to go for a little walk, get out and about, but actually, where are the toilets? Where's the benches? I'm trying to walk down to the local community hall, but I need a rest in the way. Time had, is there a bench there? So yeah, that whole bit around helping people get out and about. The power of our super connectors. So people being hearing stuff from local residents, from a local trusted source. I suppose town criers back in the day were that local trusted source of information. Yeah, so having people that we can hear stuff from and get stuff from in place is really important. Yeah, and a key thing that we've really learned from the work is that actually going where the trust is. So our community partners are in place. Those small community organisations like Teresa that you're going to hear from in a minute are the really key factor in enabling our community residents in especially some of our more hard to reach, if you want to call it, priority communities, to try and really get to those residents. Going through that trusted source where they are, where those community organisations are, is really important for us. So yeah, I think that was about it. I see that Zara's on the call. She could have done this much better than me. I can't believe that she's not been roped into that. She just put something in the chat. But yeah, that's a whistle-stop tour of where One Step at a Time is at, really. Other key learning and other things is there, but I think that was the main things. Anybody?
I was just writing some notes down as you were talking, and while the video was running as well, and it was really interesting because by the end of that kind of video, some of the key things that I'd written down were words that were used in the video, and also by you, Helen, just now. Things like trust and hope, and enabling, befriending, life-changing, social action, enabling communities. And they're just so powerful, aren't they? They're just so powerful. When you start to look at them like that, it far surpasses kind of this thought of just, you know, it's just a walk. It's just a walk. It's just about getting people out more frequently. The outcomes are just so strong there. And 410 volunteers is amazing. That's just remarkable. Does anybody have any questions for Helen while we have her on centre stage? I do have one, Helen, but I'll save myself till last. Does anybody have anything for Helen at all? While people are thinking, I sort of made a note of your figures, Helen, around that social cost of the financial cost of loneliness.
Yeah,
and I think that's really powerful because we quite often struggle to evidence the impact of some of the walking programs that we have. Where's that report from? Do you know?
It was the. Hang on, let me bring up my notes again. It was under that one. It was the Loneliness Monetization Report, but I can circulate the link for that if that's useful.
Yeah, I think that would be really useful.
I think we were quite conscious that when we're trying to evidence the work and the impact of initiatives and programs like One Step at a Time, it's really hard because it isn't. There's some nice numbers there, and they are nice, but actually, you know, how many people volunteered and I know how robust all of that is. I wouldn't, you know, say at the moment. However, I think one of the things that is really does make people's ears prick up, and it obviously has yours, Helen. You know, that cost save on health and social care around that, I do think is a really important thing for us to be able to start to evidence as other sectors to help people see the value of that. So yeah.
Fabulous. We'll make sure that that's circulated in the notes then as well. Anne, you have your hand up. Can I come over to you for your question or comment?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the training for your walk leaders, actually, because obviously we run 5 walks in Rushcliffe, and all our leaders are trained through the Wellbeing Walks scheme with Ramblers. So we get insurance, and that gives the volunteers some kind of sense of, I don't know, that at least they're covered. But I just wondered how other people are going about doing the walk leader roles.
I think so. Generally, Anne, there's not been walking isn't a key thing of the activities. So I know the video did show a walk happening with who cut through the core centre, but predominantly it's not that. So there's not a need for walk leader training. So I don't know why I use these names, but I use if Janice is knocking on Jack's door to just walk him down to the lunch club on a Friday, and that's the befriending and support that happened, that doesn't need a walk leader training or anything above that. So I think a really important thing for One Step at a Time is that it really is around those steps to get people out and about and connected, and then it's working with those community groups to then, if they did want to take on to doing something a bit more formal. However, what I would say is, if for a community organisation to go for a little walk around Titchfield Park or Rushcliffe Park, they don't need to have done walk leader training. It's covered in their insurance. Everyone's agreeing to meet on a Friday at 6 o'clock to go for a walk, or whatever it is. They don't need to have had that. And so there's a real thing within the work is around us empowering and enabling our community organisations to do that without feeling too fearful that I've got to have this trained and I've got to have an extra insurance. Because actually, when you look into it, they don't need that. They just need to have had to make sure that it's covered on their insurance, really, and as long as they've got public liability, and it is. So does that make sense? We haven't really gone down that route, and we were initially, and that's where I started with the CVS partners. We're really kind of like, oh my goodness, everyone's got to be walk leader trained, and we've got to have this, and we've got to have that. But actually, that isn't what we needed. What we needed was this support to just enable people to get out and about. So it's been much more that befriending, connecting, social action side of it all, rather than formal walking groups. Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, I think it's just that for if people want to come and join us, then there's a follow-on perhaps, just in the community thing. That would be fine. Our challenge is getting everybody trained, so that, because we're not part of a community organisation as such, so we need, and we don't have our own insurance, but we're part of the Ramblers stuff, so we just need to get our people trained. And so so just a call out to anybody else that's doing wellbeing walk training at the moment that happens to be on this call. If you could let us know, we could perhaps join together and do some more to get a few more leaders trained.
Thank you. Lovely. Thanks, Anne, and thanks for your reply, Helen. Is there any other questions for Helen before we move on? No. Helen, thank you so much for that. It was really, really useful, and also sort of sowed the seed for what might come next as well, because during those the presentation and the video, you hear things about potentially sort of young people and also people that work and so can't attend traditional walking activities that might happen Monday to Friday through the daytime. So it's really interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how that starts to grow in the future, because you've now got this brilliant evidence base that it brings to fruition all sorts of benefits. That'll be a great one to look at in the future. Fabulous. Thank you so much.
We're going on time, Helen. That never happens to me, does it? That's really quite
sort of on time, Helen. Top marks. Thank you. We're going to move next to Teresa then, if we can. So Teresa's new to the group today, but sure not be new to all of you. I'm sure Teresa is a really experienced walk leader doing some fabulous stuff. And Teresa's very kindly agreed to join us today to talk about her lived experience as a walk leader and how that impacts her communities, and possibly touching on some of the things that Helen's mentioned as well about One Step at a Time. So Teresa, are you okay for me to hand over to you? And we'll do a similar thing if that's okay. We'll take questions at the end. Lovely, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Helen says, I'm new today, and I'm not an official walk leader, as Helen's just said. My group is a community group, so I didn't have to get traditional training. I'm just bringing my already established group together. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I run a small CIC in Hucknall, and it makes me laugh because when we went into the breakout rooms, I said I run a small CIC in Hucknall, and by small, it's just me. So you can't get much smaller than that. So yeah, it's just me, and we're called Your Time, and the full title at Companies House is Your Time, Believe, Belong, Become CIC. So I'm a community interest company. So I'm non-profit. I don't get paid. I'm doing this for my community to get people out into the community. The basis of Your Time, I've got to tell you this before I move on to the walking side of it, is because it comes hand in hand with what I do with the walking, is to get people away from the diet mentality. So it's to try and get people to feel good about themselves and not turn to food as a support system. So we are mindset based. So that to be mindset based, that encompasses lots of different things like walking. So it's a well-being, body confidence and weight loss group with mindset as the high priority. So my experience of a walking group came about. I only started Your Time in 2021, and it was on the back of the pandemic, after years myself of being overweight, not having good mental health. I had a total nervous breakdown, didn't work for 16 years, and I didn't go back to work until the most inconvenient time. You'll all be able to guess when I went back to work, if it's the most inconvenient time after 16 years of being out of work, was 2 weeks before the first national lockdown in retail. If you wanted toilet rolls on the black market, I would have been able to get them for you. But it was a steep learning curve. And I came out of the pandemic wanting to help community and wanting to help people step away from not feeling worthy just by getting on a set of scales. So my mission was to get people out and about and away from a set of scales. So me and Helen met through, it was like a meeting like this. And Helen was on a Zoom call, and it was a physical meeting. And I didn't know anything about funding because I'm a complete novice. I've never owned a business before. I've never owned a community group before. I've never run a community group before. And I didn't know about funding. And she said, I think I can give you a bit of funding, because my priority is to find ways of making you feel good about yourself away from food. So I knew that walking for me, having a mental breakdown, walking was high priority for me. So not just for keeping fit and losing weight to keep my weight down, but for my mental wellness, being out in nature was nurture for me. So I knew that walking, simple, free, could be effective for my ladies and gentlemen that come to me. So she said to me, I can give you funding. So it wasn't from the One Step at a Time fund, it was from the Together fund, wasn't it? Yeah, it wasn't it. I'm also menopausal, so that could have been wrong, you see. So yes, it was the Together fund, which was, again, it was trying to get people out into the community. So yeah, the initial fund was for £2,000, and it was to start again. I'd never delivered a walking group before. I didn't know how it would work, but I knew that it would be beneficial. So I created a walk and talk in Hucknall, predominantly for my members, to get out at another wellbeing session. So I run it on a Sunday morning. It's at 10:15 on Titchfield Park. I chose Titchfield Park because I've got people who come that have different mobility issues, some full-time carers, so it needed to be within easy access of where they live, and they needed to be out for minimal space of time. So yes, I created the walk on a Sunday morning, and I didn't know how it would work, but now, nearly a year on, the changes in the people and the way that it's helped their mental health, not just their mental health, because I've got an 86-year-old who has balance issues, and she drives herself there and comes on a walking frame. She wasn't very confident. She now says that she's got more confidence because she feels supported by the group. I feel that coming to a group that's already come from a group that has already I can't think of the word. What's the word? like from my group, they've come, what's the word? I can't, yeah, this is menopause for you. Those men on here that I don't go through menopause, this is the biggest thing. Brain fog. Brain fog.
I think you mean established, don't you, Teresa? You mean like the established group?
That's it. Yeah, it's come out of your town. It's an already established group. So I run 2 support groups, one on a Thursday evening, one on a Friday morning. And because they weren't going to just a walking group that can feel really daunting, just going to an actual walking group, because you might think like, I don't know which lady said that you've got to have walk leaders and you might have to go X amount of miles, you've got to have certain sort of fitness. Because it's coming from an established group already with support within the group, they felt confident to come to try. Some had never been walking, they haven't been out the house since COVID. I've got one lady joined recently that has found Your Time through Walk and Talk being advertised, and she came to Walk and Talk, not Your Time support group. She's come to Walk and Talk because she's found it real struggle since COVID to get her back out into the community. So it's helping her just to come on a Sunday morning. So it's part of the Your Time's ethos. We've got 3 pillars, which is believe, belong and become. So the middle one is belong to a supportive community. So because they've come out of established community to an extra session, there's not the added pressure of going to somewhere new where you've got to have some sort of fitness. So I've got a lady that's a full-time carer. I've got my son who's autistic, who needs to be with people. I've got the 86-year-old lady who's got balance issues, who pushes herself. She walks around on a frame, and we just stop at the benches. I stay with her at the back and we stop at benches, and she still wants to do it, so she's not stuck in the house. I've got young mums who bring their children with them, so they're coming and stepping away from screen time, so they're getting active. And to see the friendships formed and the interaction between them has been really amazing for me personally, to see that, because I didn't know how it would work, and they look forward to coming. I created I'm laughing because it's one of the things that they try and get out of me every week. I created a little card, and they get a sticker. And this is a reward card. It's a bit like being at school. Do you know when you like getting a gold star from the teacher? You didn't like seeing all the red crosses through, but you like to get a little gold star. It's a bit like that. And I've got 86-year-old woman desperate for a sticker on her card, because these stickers it's to create consistency, but it's also to create a sense of community with them, that they're a joined group. So this card, they get a little sticker with a walking man on it. Person, should I say person? It's got no gender. And when they get to 10, when they get to 10 attendances, they get a reward. And we've got pedometers, an orange pedometer. We've got water bottles with Your Time on. We've got backpacks. We've got T-shirts. And they all choose one every time they've come to 10 attendances. They can choose. And the stickers are very sought after. And one of the ladies tries to get extra stickers out of me every week. But again, there's also friendly rivalry, because we do circuits of Titchfield Park. So I don't know if you all know Titchfield Park. It's quite a big loop of about as a figure of 8, so you can go around the top section if you want. So the ones with less mobility go around the top sections, and the others, there's friendly rivalry between them now. And these are ladies that didn't go out walking. There's one lady that never went out walking. She's now bought a more expensive pair of trainers because she goes walking, additionally to going to Walk and Talk. And then they're lapping each other, and they're counting how many laps they're doing. People who didn't go exercising. I've got a lady who's a full-time carer who suffers with breathing, and she's really struggled to do walking, but she's been coming on her husband's mobility scooter, and she's done the top section. Or she'll come and she says, is it all right for Scoot and Talk this week? So she wants to be out. So it's creating a sense of community within them, and the friendships formed is amazing, because it's about mental well-being as well as physical well-being. The two go hand in hand together. Yeah, I don't think you can, because very often when you go to doctors to lose weight or feel, they'll say go out and do a bit of exercise. Well, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it, but physical and mental health go hand in hand, and I've seen that on a daily basis and within my classes, my groups. One lady came one week and she was in floods of tears because she'd had a really stressful week at home, and she was desperate to come that morning because it was just over an hour out in the fresh air and she knew she'd get support. And as she walked around crying, the people that she created friendships with were supporting them. Before she went home, she felt better prepared to cope with life stresses. So that's a simple tool I've found with a great impact on the community and on people personally, and also on myself. And it's been a really rewarding experience. And thanks to the funding from Active Knots, who've given us funding twice now. Yeah, we also go to trips further afield, and again, it's people who have their husbands have probably passed away, or they live on their own, or I've got single mums who can't afford to take the children further afield because it costs too much money. So the funding that I've been able to get from Helen at Active Knots gives me the option to be able to get a minibus so that I can take people on a minibus, and we've gone walking and talking further afield. Usually involves cake as well.
All good things do, Teresa. Teresa, thank you so much for that. I think it's so valuable because we talk so much about the impact that walking groups have on our communities. I think probably as well we overlook in some of those conversations the impact that the walking activities have on the person that's leading those walks as well, because you've effectively, you're fostering and nurturing a mini community, aren't you, in your area, and that's benefited you and all those other people, and I think it's a really unique view, and really appreciate you spending the time with us as well in explaining that, because it just comes across as so powerful, the work that you're doing and the impact that it has. It's fantastic. I'm going to open it up if anybody has any questions for Teresa at all. No, that means that you. Oh, Sarah. Sarah, can I come over to you for a question then?
Yeah, it's not a question. It's just to say to Teresa, I'm from Hucknall, so it's just really nice to hear that you're doing something for that community. So it will probably be something that I'll mention to my uncle, because we recently lost my auntie, so his wife. So, and he lives right near Titchfield Park as well. So he's dead sociable. But yeah, it was just more. Yeah, it's nice to hear things that are happening where you grew up.
Thank you.
So thanks.
It is fabulous, and yeah, it is, and it's great to have that broad range as well. You know, quite often we're used to walking activities being very specifically targeted, and they're very targeted towards one demographic. But your walkers are really varied, aren't they, Teresa?
Yeah,
but you've just got such a varied sort of collection of people. And actually, if we tried to do that, we'd probably fail woefully. And it takes somebody that's embedded and part of the community to make these things really work, I think. So yes,
it's because they're coming from the established group mainly, because the two groups connect together. It also has created a connection between the two groups, because they wouldn't meet. The Thursday night group wouldn't normally meet the Friday morning group.
Yeah.
So it's created a connection between the groups, so they've got an identity together.
It makes a big difference in that connecting. Helen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it's just I think someone else has put Teresa doing herself an injustice in the group, I think, but because I do think there is something around the power of Teresa's way. So the way that she is so welcoming and friendly, and just has a laugh, and nothing's too serious. You don't have to have the right kit. It's just all very just normal, Teresa, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It just
I've never been called that before, Helen. But
it's just, and there's something there around, because the workforce that we have in place to create this. It's not overcomplicating it. It's just around being friendly, being amenable, being kind, and wanting to help people get out and about. And I think finding those people is what we need to be thinking about in our work, because that's the skill, that's the people that we need, and then you build the confidence around walking around that. But it's that bit for me, and that's Teresa oozes that. So
yeah, absolutely.
We're mutual fan club, aren't we, Teresa, me and you?
Yeah.
And I think, Helen, in your presentation, you use the term super connector somewhere in your, and I think that really, and I don't know whether Teresa in your framework is a super connector, but that principle of somebody that's able to reach into communities authentically and be that friendly face, be that face of comfort, and kind of actually the things that we've been talking about, social action and mental health and befriending and enabling and all of those things. It really, I think the point is that people need to embody that, and that's really hard. And Teresa, I'm going to let you sit and read the comments because they are glowing in your favour. So I won't embarrass you by reading them all out, but I think everybody recognises the work that you do and how terrific that is in having that impact in communities. And thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us about it as well.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Right, we will move on then. Thank you so much, Teresa. I'm going to move on swiftly to Steve. And Steve's come to us today, also new to the group today, to talk about minor to major. So as part of this kind of agenda of looking at the community impacts, Steve has very kindly offered to talk to us about this programme. Steve, if I can bring you in
absolutely. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Helen, and thank you for inviting me to the group as well. So I'm going to do the tech thing now and share my screen, and hopefully at the same time share some audio as well. So first of all, just a thumbs up when you can hopefully see a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I can.
Great. That's the first thing. So yeah, I'm scheme manager of something called Minor to Major. Minor as in mining, coal mining, and major as in the Major Oak. And we're what's called a landscape partnership, and we're operational in an area of Sherwood Forest that stretches from Bestwood Country Park up until probably around sort of Ollerton and the National Nature Reserve and Budby Heath, for those of you who are familiar with the area. We are primarily funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. I've put the logo there on the PowerPoint, and our general remit. Sorry, I've gone a little bit too quick on that. Our general remit is this celebrating the rich heritage of Sherwood Forest, and that includes things that you would normally associate with heritage, people's heritage, archaeology, buildings, but also the habitats and species, the sort of natural habitats and species. And we're doing a lot of work around, for instance, restoration and creation of heathland in the area and some of the old the pit tips in the area. We're doing a lot of work around species monitoring and then habitat improvement. We've been doing work around training people on heritage building skills. We've been doing archaeological work, and we've been doing various projects that are sort of exploring the sort of the social history of the area. We have the reason I've come to talk to you today, and I've been invited by Will, who's here on this call as well from Active Knots. We had one of our many projects that is managed by Inspire. So we're a partnership project. I sit within the county council. We're a partnership project. We've got ourselves as the county council, Newark and Sherwood District Council, Inspire, the RSPB, the Wildlife Trust, the Sherwood Forest Trust, a number of sort of key core partners, and then a much wider partnership helping us to deliver the projects. Inspire deliver our engagement program through their arts service, but also through courses, family learning and adult learning, and I'll pick up on a little bit of that at the end of the presentation. The engagement projects, one of them, which actually started life as a community theatre project, but then because of the pandemic, we couldn't do that. We couldn't do the liaison with communities that we wanted to because of the pandemic. So it turned into a storytelling walks project, because one thing people could do during the pandemic is go out for a walk. And so the beginnings of the project sort of worked online, and then gradually as the lockdown lifted, we're in person. And you can see the partners here who were involved in this particular project. So it was led by a community theatre company called Excavate. And I'll put links to these, or you know, in the chat, and I can share the presentation at the end as well. Very experienced with working with communities on projects. Inspire as a partner, and then we had funding. Excavate got funding from the Arts Council, and we added to that funding to sort of make the project. What it is a series of 6 storytelling audio walks. Now our remit, if you like, our outcome is about people learning about heritage. So all of the walks blend in local heritage. There was over 300, I think it was 302 people involved in putting the walks together. You know, Andy worked with communities in each of the areas: Bestwood, Calverton, Clipston, Edwinstone, Newstead and Ollerton, and then sort of, you know, talk to people about local stories, looked at the sort of local heritage there, looked at a sort of a local walk that could be you know, they vary in size, but the idea is you can walk from the community, but they take you out to maybe areas that you wouldn't normally go to, and they're all narrated by either local people or actors who have sort of pulled together that narrative and talk, you know, and blend in those stories from the local area. So we've got each of the walks has a map. All of this is online. There's a Sherwood Voices website. All the maps are online, but we also did a printout booklet as well of each of the walks. And the walks you'll see on the maps, they're quite basic as a map, and the point is that the narrator leads you on the story. So they sort of say, hi, you know, I'm this person, I'm going to take you on a walk, we're going to start here, we're going to walk over there to that bench. So they sort of take you on the walk. The idea is that you are led on it. I'll play you a couple of excerpts from the walks just so you can get a feel for what they are. So this is Sophie's story, and this is in Ollerton. Is that audio coming through?
Number 1, bench opposite the Hot Pole Hotel. Look up there, at all those windows, in the Hot Pole. Maybe you'll see me there, waving down at you. Probably not, though. I couldn't really afford it. Hello, I'm Sophie, and I'm going to be walking with you. I've been asked where I'd like to go by Sherwood Voices, and so this is my walk. Only, it's not just mine. I've asked a few people to help me out, and you'll hear them as we go on our way. They're people I've met by being nosy, because I am, as you'll find out. My mum says that I should become a window cleaner, because I'm only ever really happy when I'm sticking my nose in other people's business.
So that's the beginning of Sophie's story, the Ollerton walk, and it goes on, and they'll takes you for a walk, and then you hear from other people from the community, some of the local people from the community, some of the kind of local organisations and businesses in the community, and it taps into a lot of the mining heritage of the area. A lot of people, you know, sort of came to Ollerton because of the mining, so it taps into that, but also other heritage of the area as well. The second one, I'm just going to sort of like show you clips from two, because of course you're all going to go out and do these walks, and so you'll hear from themselves, so I don't want to ruin that for you. The second one was very different. This was done with the school in Calverton, the primary school in Calverton, and it involved, I think there were over 60 children from the school who were involved in sort of narrating the walk, but also helping to develop the walk. So this is a slightly different one, and again we'll hear a little excerpt from the children.
So we're going to go down the narrow path now. Please do not feed the horses with any food you have. Mind the holly bushes on your left as you go further down. When you get to the end of this path, you'll see a gate and a road. Don't go through the gate until we've finished talking. When my parents tell me to go on a walk, I get really upset, but when I start walking, it feels really nice and warm, so I get really happy.
Sometimes I walk my dog with my dad down the lane at the end of the road. Yeah, we talk about stuff sometimes.
I enjoy going for a walk, and I every so often I have to go out because my little sister's always eager to get some fresh air, and I'm happy with that.
I walk with my dog and my dad to the park sometimes, or to the pub.
I meet some of my friends and my grandma and granddad's friends there.
Okay, just a little excerpt, but it was one of my favourite walks, I think, the school children one, and I think hearing some of the children, you can hear that there's quite a thing to hear about what they got out of it as sort of young people, and that sort of talking about it in the only way young people can, you get a very honest response. So great project. We've got the walks. Through Victoria Davis from Primary Integrated Community Services, a social prescribing link worker, we have put the booklets that we've got have gone into a number of GP surgeries around the area. We've got them in the libraries at Inspire, and we've also put some of the walks on MP3 players. So and they're available in the libraries. So you can download the walks from the website, the Sherwood Voices website, and then you can also stream them on various different platforms. So Audible and Amazon and Spotify, and something called Anchor, which kind of pings it out to most of the downloadable ones. So we've got it out there. We did evaluation of it as we were creating it, but interestingly, when talking to Will and Heather, his colleague across in Walk Derbyshire, about it, we evaluate it from a different point of view. We're evaluating because we want people to learn about local heritage. So as we were developing it, we were sort of asking people the question, are you learning about local heritage? And then also we have had some, just sort of had people go on the walks and give us feedback. And again, it's about that learning about local heritage. And although we would ask them a question, are there any additional benefits of this? And we've got some nice feedback that's about sort of like, a bit like the children were talking about, I've been able to talk to my family as I go out on the walk. I've enjoyed the fresh air, sort of thing. It's that sort of anecdotal evidence, and we've done launch events of all these walks, and we did a launch event in Ollerton, and Will came along to that along with a few other people who are sort of workers in Ollerton, or people who are connected with communities. And as a next step, and it was a suggestion that Will gave, really was to sort of really give it that sort of get that feedback from local people on and local groups on doing the walk, and sort of ask questions in the feedback from a number of different directions. Obviously from our point of view for the heritage, but also that thing about kind of like how people are, what impact it is for them, maybe for a health point of view, or different different reasons. and then also to get some feedback how we could improve it or add to it. So for instance, one of the things we said, you'll see on the walks, there is a number of stop-off points. We talked about whether it was possible to have little signs on posts so that people knew where they were on the walk. So it's just kind of like, there's a next step of evaluation, and we put out a call just recently to 4 or 5 people in the Ollerton area to sort of help us with that. So that's Sherwood Voices, and I just wanted to, while I was here, just mention something else as well, because I invited, there's 2 other people who have come along to the meeting, Karen Bonson and Charlotte Cargill. Karen works for Inspire, and she's our coordinator at Inspire. She puts on all the courses for us, and Charlotte's a tutor for Inspire, and she runs map reading courses and also walk courses as well. And I mean, certainly me, the map reading courses we do have really taken me by surprise. Probably not you, Charlotte, but they've just been so popular, and it's really great, because we're trying to get people out, like I say, for a slightly different reason than perhaps a lot of people on the call here, because we want them to get out into the countryside, and we want them to link with their local heritage, including the natural heritage. Charlotte has been delivering map reading made easy courses. Some of those are online, some of those are in person, and then also a map reading next steps, which obviously is in person because you're sort of getting out with the map, but also these navigating Nottinghamshire courses as well. And I'm going to pop a couple of things in the link, because if you go on to the Inspire website and the courses, you can search for walks, you can search for map reading, and there's a whole load of courses that are happening across the area. In fact, if I just pop if I put that on the screen, can you now see a website, or can you still see the presentation?
We can see their website.
Brilliant. Okay, so this is the Sherwood Voices website. So you'll see here, it's got a bit of an introduction about it. It's got the booklet available to read online, and then also you can go into each of the walks and you can download the tracks. You can see the map on there, you can download the tracks, and then you've also got links to be able to open it in the various whatever you call them, streaming platforms. For those of you who aren't familiar with Inspire run libraries, adult learning. They have a 16 to 19 college. They've got the archives in Nottinghamshire, services for schools, and also their arts and culture services. But they run courses for adults and family learning, and there's a whole host of courses that they do. But if you look on, I just searched walk and map. And Charlotte, I'm sure these are all your courses. Yeah, Karen and Charlotte can, field any questions on these, but you'll see across the county, Eastwood, Bestwood, Beeston, Stapleford, Worksop, Southall, Beeston. They're across the area, and as an addition, I think to this, the Sherwood Voices thing that I was kind of asked to present about. I think this is probably quite a valuable resource for you as partners. And the courses, Karen can explain, who can go on the courses, but also they're developing courses all the time. So Karen's the person to speak to about those. And I think I'll just go back to my presentation. I don't think there was too much else that I had on there. It was just a sort of final slide which has got a couple of links and a couple of contacts on, and I'll share the slide afterwards, and I'll just pop a couple of links in the chat. And I think that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Steve. That was fantastic. And I felt quite joyful listening to that. When the audios came in, it just really struck me that they're authentically the voices of people that are walking that trail and that live in those communities and that sound just like me and my kids and my family. And It's just really lovely to hear that, and I felt, yeah, it's really, really impactful. I'm going to just open it up for questions because I'm sure that lots of people felt exactly the same way that I did. I've been scribbling down millions of notes of all the people that I think are going to love that, Steve. So I'll be pinging it out on emails to people later today. But is there any questions for Steve while we've got him in the session? Laura.
How much did it cost to produce those 6 audios?
Good question. I think in all, it's quite an expensive project because it's an Arts Council sort of project with I think, you know, you're probably talking about a £8,000 project, if I'm honest. You know, it's not cheap.
It then lasts forever, doesn't it? It's then always there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No,
it's pretty
absolutely.
impressive.
No, absolutely. So you know, it's not Arts Council funded. And then we put in some extra money. It's probably a little bit extra than that, actually. It's probably more like about 12 or something, because I think we put in about 3 on top of it. But I think, you know, back to what Helen was said there, you know, the quality, you know, there was a long process. It took 2 years to put it all together. You know, the process of working with communities, but also then the quality of the recordings, the quality of the design work, and the you know, the sort of like the website and everything. So I think it's something that's worth mentioning. Actually, sorry, go on. Sorry, was someone just asked?
Sorry, I was just going to say I've been around some quite impressive like castles where the audio's been done by actors and things like that, and that sounds better than those.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah. Recorded at JT Saws mostly in Nottingham, so local, you know, local recording as well. So interestingly, something I mentioned to Will at the when we met recently. We're like I said, we're evaluating these from the point of view of heritage and people being involved in heritage, because that's one of our main outcomes. But just recently, the Heritage Lottery Fund, or the National Lottery Heritage Fund as they're now called, in their new framework, well-being is one of their outcomes. And so I flagged it up to Will and Heather about that sort of you know, link between your world, if you like, of well-being, health, well-being, and heritage being a link for that. And I think, you know, things like this, where people are sort of exploring their locality, or it is local voices and local stories, is very much, and they have a up to £10,000 or 10,000 to 250,000 pounds sort of funding streams, but certainly for the up to 10,000 one, you know, for local groups, I think that's really sort of accessible to put something together that's this sort of project, you know.
Absolutely, that's great. And actually, that was sort of, I don't know whether I've just been using the wrong companies, but I thought that was a really reasonable cost for that type of.
Oh, right, okay, you're never quite sure, are you? Where people go, oh my word.
Will, I'll come across to you quickly for a last question.
Yeah, it's not a question. It's just something Stevie didn't mention, which I find really, which I find great with this piece of work, is that bit around the way that the audio can be used wherever you are. So I think you talked before about social prescribers using, you know, going into people's homes or into care homes or wherever, or day services, and helping some of those older people possibly listen to the stories as a sort of starting point, which is really inspiring.
About that, you know, we somebody just took them into an a care home with them, and so for people who are not able to go onto the walk, they kind of work as a podcast almost, or just as a story, because they're nice to listen to. I had COVID in February, and so I was kind of bedridden for about a week, so I listened to them all, and it was really nice listening to them all, because I know all of those communities, particularly Ollerton. I lived there for a while, so it was really nice just to listen to them. It's a good point, Will. You know, they have a you know, another life just to actually sort of listen to them and to remember, sort of thing. You know, so.
And interestingly as well, I was just noting down while we were listening to that point of having local people describing any type of activity from a ride-wise perspective, for example. I could see that really working really well with having, say, a member of one of our female cycling groups talking just for 60 seconds about that, what that is, and being able to share that firsthand kind of voices that sound like me, that are from my community, that are worried about the same things that I'm worried about, that I can just hear about in 60 seconds telling me that something is how things work. Hearing your little audios there really gave me an insight of how that might help with all sorts of different things as well. So that's really helpful. Thank you so much, Steve, for that and for kind of the overview. It was really really enlightening, and I really loved hearing those bits. I think that they worked really well. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to just kind of wrap us up. We've got just a couple of minutes left. And firstly, I want to say thank you to our speakers today. They've just been magnificent. I think it's just been so useful to hear that different perspective. We talk so much about community engagement and how it impacts it, but I think how walking impacts it. But I think hearing these 3 different speakers today give us a really rich, vibrant view of how it actually impacts our, and we, we're also used to running so quickly, getting programs off the ground, getting them out into communities, delivering them, and then monitoring them. And we talk about community impact, but I think hearing it from our partners in this way makes a really big difference. I'm going to just share in an impromptu moment. I'm going to try and share my screen, which hopefully you can all see now. And I hadn't planned on doing this, but I'd mentioned as we'd gone along, I'd started to make note of some of the words that were being used by the 3 presenters. And I've just been jotting those down as we've talked. So interestingly, I didn't know, I may have overlooked it, but I didn't know anybody talking about frequency of physical activity, for example, a number of minutes walked, or any of those types of things. These are the words that I've noted down from the impact in our communities. So things like mindset, belonging, social action, these came up in the 3 presentations. Accessible, hope, support, heritage, pride. I really, really liked it. Came up in yours, Steve. I think that's verbatim from one of your speakers, but we talk about stuff when we walk. That was also echoed by Teresa in her overview, but also touched on by Helen as well, that idea that kind of walking is bringing people together and forming these unlikely friendships that maybe wouldn't have had chance to grow in different situations. So I just thought I'd share that really as a bit of bringing together the speakers, because there's been so many kind of common themes that have come through, and yet not once really have we talked about number of minutes walking or transitioning to other types of activities and sports. This is so powerful, I think, in terms of the impact on people. So I'm trying to get you back up, because my screen's all disappeared now. I've stopped sharing that now. Thank you so much for everybody for coming along. Do we have any final questions before we close the session today? What I'm hoping is that you've all got some really rich and inspiring information and evidence of what's happening. I've popped into the, there's lots of chat been going along. I've popped into the chat the link to the monetisation of loneliness report from the government, which is directly in there, and the other speakers and also attendees have been popping things in there as well. So we'll take those links out and make sure that they're shared afterwards too. Is there anything else that anybody would like to flag up before we do end the session today? I feel like I need to get my shoes on now and go for a walk, take my neighbours and dogs and be part of the community. It's fabulous. Okay, I will leave it there then. Thank you everybody so much for your contributions. We do have the date for the next session, which is in January, which sounds like forever away, but it will be soon at our doorsteps. So when we send out the links to the presentations and things, we'll make sure that we include that so we can get into your diaries nice and early. Okay, thank you so much everybody, and thank you to the speakers. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.